Hello, sports fan, and welcome to the Packs for Breakfast. Packs for Breakfast. Yes, easy for me to say. 2025 draft coverage. Yeah, that's right. We're not talking about Josh Downs. We're not going to talk about Bijan Robinson. We're not talking about Christian Gonzalez. I just need something in the background. But what we are going to do, and then you'll see it from the title, where in the world is Shedeur Sanders going? That's what we want to know. Carmen Sandiego wants to know too. She wants to know, where's Shedeur going to be? Well, I'm going to give you some theories. We're going to talk about the stuff that's popular. We're going to talk about stuff that's not popular. And we're going to talk about stuff I just made up just because it's like, I've got theories. Or not theories, hunches. I don't know what you would call them. Guesses. Probably more likely. So, Shedeur Sanders, likely, will go either number 2 to the Giants. No, it's going to be Travis Hunter. Number 2 to the Browns. No, it'll be Travis Hunter. Number 3 to the Giants. No, probably Abdul Carter. Number 6 to the Raiders. Not if Genti is still available, but I just don't think the Raiders are going to take him at 6. The Saints at 9. That one seems very interesting to me because right now the Saints are saying, no, we're not taking a quarterback. We have no interest in Shedeur Sanders. But maybe isn't that what you would tell the entire league so that nobody tries to trade up in front of you so that you can get the guy you're looking for? And then, of course, the other most likely landing spot would be the Steelers at 21. Now, we pretty much are going to have to say that Cleveland is set on Travis Hunter. I think they really like his versatility. They've talked about how they are going to let him play both ways. So I would say Travis Hunter, it's a pretty safe pick at number 2. Number 3, I still believe that Shedeur Sanders could go at number 3. I really do. As good as Abdul Carter is, and with the talk of them maybe trading Tavon Thibodeau, which would lead to, Abdul Carter definitely being a guy that you bring in so you can get rid of Thibodeau. I just don't see the Giants taking Shedeur at 3. I don't think they love him enough. Brian Dable has even said he doesn't really like him that much. Could also be a lot of bluster and a lot of fluff. It could be that, Shedeur Sanders spent a lot of time with the Giants. So this could all still be a lot of, just a lot of blowhard just so that they can sit there and go, no, we don't like him. We're not going to take that guy. Don't anybody try to trade up to number 2 to get him. But I don't think anybody will. I don't think anybody's going to give a lot of draft capital away. I don't think the Giants have to worry about that. So why put up the smoke screen? Because I really don't believe that anybody like the Raiders or the Saints or the Steelers would trade up to number 2 to get Shedeur Sanders, because I don't think anybody loves him enough to do it. To make a commitment like that to move up to number 2 and the draft capital you're going to have to give up, you really have to love that quarterback. So I think the Giants is still very real. If he survives to 6 at the Raiders, yeah, I could see that happening too. It also still depends if Ashton Genti is on the board. You sign Geno Smith to like a 3-year deal. Geno should be decent for the next 3 years. And if Ashton Genti is still on the board, why wouldn't you take a really good running back to go with Brock Bowers at tight end, and then you got Geno, at quarterback? I think your offense would be serviceable. And even then, it's like, why not take, even if Genti is gone, why not take a really good edge rusher to put on the other side of Crosby? The Saints at 9. The Saints at 9 are an interesting one because you don't really know what's going to happen with David Carr. We're still wondering, is David Carr going to miss the season? Is he going to miss a part of the season? How serious is this injury? And why don't we know yet just how serious this injury is? It seems like by now we should know that answer because this Derek Carr thing has been floating around for a couple of weeks. So I would think you'd have results on really what you need to do, unless he's seeking 5th, 6th, and 7th opinions on what he should do about his shoulder. I don't think the Saints are that enamored with Derek Carr to begin with. But I also don't think that they've really spent a lot of time thinking that they need Shedeur Sanders. Although that all being said, who do you take at 9? Do you take an offensive lineman? Do you take a wide receiver? Do you take, Shedeur Sanders does kind of make sense to them at 9. Then, of course, if he's able to get past 9, a lot of people feel like he will fall all the way down to 21 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's assuming nobody trades back up into the first round to snag him before Pittsburgh gets him. Pittsburgh moving up to get him seems unlikely. It's not a Pittsburgh Steeler thing to do. So I doubt that they do it. They're usually very happy with, even if somebody takes the player they want, they find another guy that just fits what they do. And it'd probably be a defensive lineman or a safety or something like that. So those are the likely places. Those are the places that everybody's talking about. And if I had to pick one of those five, I'll tell you right now, I would lean Saints. I think the Saints are just making a lot of smoke. I think the Saints need a quarterback. I think they know more about Derek Carr's situation than they're letting on. Derek Carr's not telling anybody, because Derek Carr has always been he's a good company man, to say the least. And so I think even when the Raiders kicked him out, he didn't really badmouth the Raiders. He's just a good company man. And I think that a guy like that, who kind of takes the Christian turn the other cheek kind of an approach to life, I don't think that I think he would play along with what the Saints wanted to do, which is, hey, let's stay quiet about your injury, even though we know you're going to miss the season. Let's stay quiet about it until after the draft, and then we can get Shedeur at 9. So if I had to pick a place where Shedeur is going to end up in the 2025 NFL draft, it's the Saints at number 9. Now, hear me out. I've got a couple of other places he could go, because there's all this talk about trading back up into the first round. There's all this talk about him slipping to 21, slipping past 9. If he gets past 9, there's a lot of picks in between the Saints at 9 and the Steelers at 21, and a lot of teams that are in there that are willing to trade back. But what if one of those three teams that's positioned in between the Steelers and the Saints decide to take Shedeur Sanders for themselves? Hear me out. The Miami Dolphins pick at 13. And I know what a lot of you are saying. They've got Tua Tagovailoa. They're fine. They don't need a quarterback. Tua gets hurt. You always have the concern that the next concussion could be the last one that keeps him out of the league for the rest of his life. You don't know. Tua is a very nice quarterback, but there is so much uncertainty that hangs over his head. You've given him a lot of money, but he may not make it through entire seasons. He could miss. If he gets hurt in the first, second, or third game, now you turn the ball over to Skylar Thompson or Zach Wilson, and you hope that Sean Payton was able to fix Zach Wilson. You're hoping that Sean Payton was able to fix Zach Wilson enough to where he comes in and he's a good quarterback for you if Tua gets hurt. So why not take Shedeur Sanders at 13? You wouldn't have to trade up. You wouldn't have to trade back. Shedeur's just sitting there. All of a sudden, you surprise the world. And you take him there, and you let him sit behind Tua for a couple of years. And if Tua does get hurt, which inevitably he will, unfortunately for Tua, Shedeur could come in, and I think he would do better than Zach Wilson or Skylar Thompson. So let's say he gets past 13. What's your next choice? 14 to the Colts. Look at the Colts. The Colts aren't overly impressed with Richardson. So much the fact that they brought in Daniel Jones to compete with him. Daniel Jones isn't exactly one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. He's a young quarterback with a lot of question marks himself. So you've got Daniel Jones and Richardson competing for the number 1 QB already. Why not bring in the Rook? Why not bring in Shedeur Sanders to also compete with these other two guys? Right now, Richardson is cheap. He ain't costing you anything. Daniel Jones isn't costing you that much right now. And then you have another quarterback that you bring in on a rookie deal with the 14th pick in the draft. Now you can really see who you like. And if Shedeur does kind of impress, you have 2 trade players in Richardson, which another team might say, I know how to use Richardson. I could fix him. What about a team like Denver with Sean Payton, who had Taysom Hill for a lot of years, brings in a guy like that just to be, not take Bo Nix's job, but be a Taysom Hill type going, you're not going to be my starter. That's Bo. But now I have a dangerous weapon that I can bring in and kind of throw in. You teach him to catch, and all of a sudden you have a dangerous weapon who could be your backup quarterback to Bo Nix in an emergency only. But then, so you have Shedeur Sanders there. You could have some trade bait in Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. Don't listen to me on the Anthony Richardson going to Denver because I would never want to see it actually happen. I'm not an Anthony Richardson fan. Good guy, but, too many question marks about his actual ability. So then we're going to go the Seattle Seahawks at 18. Oh, whoa, Randy, Seattle. They signed Sam Darnold. How much did they sign Sam Darnold for? How many years is Sam Darnold signed for? They didn't sign him for a lot of years or that much money. So obviously, they're not big believers in Sam Darnold either. Your backups to Sam Darnold right now are Drew Lock and Sam Howell, and I think Jaron Hall. Oh boy, that is not the greatest quarterback room in the universe. So what if you draft Shedeur Sanders? You let him sit behind Sam Darnold. I don't know if Sam Darnold put anything in his contract that said you can't draft a quarterback. If he did, then this means absolutely nothing. All this is just me talking for no reason and wasting my breath. But what if the Seattle Seahawks, picking at 18, 3 spots in front of the Pittsburgh Steelers, what if they took Shedeur Sanders? Because their quarterback room, in my opinion, isn't that great. I'm not a big Sam Darnold believer. I'm hoping that his redemption arc keeps going up because Sam Darnold seems like a good guy, and it would be nice to see him do well in Seattle. But I'm not so convinced, especially seeing how he closed out the season with Minnesota, that he's really the guy. So now we've talked about some less obvious. Now let's go into the super unrealistic. These are picks that are so far out there, you're sitting there saying to yourself, Randy, it's stupid to even bring them up, but you know what? It's draft day. Weird things happen on draft day all the time. Let's start with something really weird. Getting past, let's say Pittsburgh does not take Shedeur Sanders. Let's say Pittsburgh takes the best available player on the board, which is what they're known for. And there's a defensive lineman they absolutely love. Remember, Cam Hayward is getting older. Why not take a defensive tackle that slips into your lap at the 21st pick, which is a great place to get a D tackle? A D tackle slips down to Pittsburgh. They have him higher on the board than Shedeur. And they sit there and say to themselves, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers at some point. We just don't know when that point is yet. But what if we get this really good defensive lineman to bolster the defense even more, because we're Pittsburgh and we love defense? So Pittsburgh takes a defensive lineman there. Shedeur still stays on the board. Now you're starting to say, well, that means obviously we're going to get Cleveland or the Giants that'll trade back up into the first round. The thing is, to trade from 33 to 34 back up into the first round, you don't want to go too high. 21, 22, 23 picks like that cost a lot of draft capital to get back up into the first round. But what if the reason that you're not able to make a trade back up into the first round is because at number 24, Minnesota is sitting there. Minnesota is sitting there with a huge question mark in J.J. McCarthy, who is coming off of a serious injury. And your other quarterback on the roster is Brett Rippon. So right now you're looking at J.J. McCarthy, question mark. Brett Rippon, we know Brett Rippon's not going to lead your team to the playoffs or a win or, even a close game, because we had Brett Rippon in Denver. He's just not that good. So you have a question mark about McCarthy. You've already basically said, nah, we don't really want an old quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, but maybe we want his young doppelganger, personality-wise. A confident young quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, and you're going, whoa, that won't happen, not in a million years. It can't happen. It's a stupid thing to say. Well, let's see. Arizona picked Josh Rosen, and then the next year they took Kyler Murray. So they picked Josh Rosen with like the 8th or 9th or 10th pick, somewhere in there, and then they took Kyler Murray the very next year and got rid of Josh Rosen. Then last year, you had a team that nobody thought was taking a quarterback in the Atlanta Falcons because they had signed Kirk Cousins, and they took Penix. What's to stop the Minnesota Vikings from saying, we're not going to trade with anybody. We're at number 24 going to take Shedeur Sanders because he's healthy, he's tough, he can take a lot of hits. McCarthy is showing right now, maybe he can't. But now you have young McCarthy, young Shedeur Sanders. If they both show good, guess what? You can ship one of them off and you can get your first round pick back. I guarantee it. If they both show well in the preseason or in, limited duty in the regular season for whoever gets to start and whoever gets to come in, you might be able to get that first round pick back anyway. So Minnesota doesn't really lose anything, but they do get a chance to kind of pit two young quarterbacks against each other to see who is going to be their starter and who they ship off to somebody else. Well, let's say the Minnesota Vikings don't do this wacky, crazy thing that I have just mentioned. What about the Rams at 26? What do the Rams have? Well, the Rams have 37-year-old Matthew Stafford, a guy that is way at the end of his career. How about a young coach like a McVay, who basically can rehabilitate quarterbacks and make them really good? He did it with Jared Goff. I think he could make an even better quarterback out of Shedeur Sanders. What if they bring in Shedeur Sanders? Who's the backup for the Rams? It's Jimmy Garoppolo. Did you know that in November, Jimmy Garoppolo will be 34 years old? And that's a guy who gets injured all the time. So now you have this idea you could get a young Shedeur Sanders, let him sit for a couple of years behind Matthew Stafford, even maybe throw him in if Matthew Stafford at 37 years old gets injured and misses a few games. Now you get to put in the kid and see what he can do. It's like not a bad idea. And the Rams, I think, do a lot of, they're a very creative franchise when it comes to what they're going to do with the players and drafting and whatnot. They have very creative philosophies, and I could see this falling in line with that. And then the last one we're going to talk about, which I think is the most unrealistic and will never happen, but I'm just going to bring them up, the Detroit Lions at number 28. I don't think Shedeur at all gets to this point, but what if he does? What if he slips all the way down to 28? And here comes Cleveland, here comes the Giants. They want to trade up with the Lions. The Lions just have to trade back 5 or 6 picks, and they'll get some good draft capital. And, Cleveland or the Giants can come in and snap up Shedeur. But what if the Lions say, no, we're not trading this pick for you guys to get Shedeur because we're taking Shedeur Sanders. Oh, the Lions shocked the world. 28th pick in the NFL draft, the Detroit Lions take University of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. And the world is like, what? What just happened here? Is Shedeur Sanders even the kind of guy that the coach would want there? I don't know why I'm blanking on the coach's name for it's like that's what happens when you get old, folks. It's like sometimes dementia and Alzheimer's just beat the crap out of you. But Campbell might say to himself, I like this kid's confidence. Maybe the arrogance is a little over the top, but the confidence is there, and I love a confident player. So think about the quarterbacks you have there right now. Jared Goff, who did not look good at the end of the year, but he is expensive right now. They paid him a lot of money just to come up short in the playoffs. Your other quarterbacks are Kyle Allen, another former Denver Bronco backup that was not good, and Hendon Hooker, who, from what I've seen in limited snaps, doesn't look like he's going to be that good either. So you really need a quarterback, maybe shock the world. Shedeur Sanders, I doubt it. That one is a stretch. That one, even I am having a hard time convincing myself that could actually happen in a million years. But I'm going to let myself put it on the video. Now, this has been a long video, very long compared to what I normally do. But today, on April 24th, 2025, it's the first round of the NFL draft, and everybody has optimism about what their team's going to do. Everybody right now has their first round pick in place. So every NFL franchise has a dream that their team is going to take that guy that is, the next Hall of Fame player at whatever position they get. And for Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders, the Saints, the Steelers, the Dolphins, the Colts, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Rams, or the Lions, maybe it's Shedeur Sanders. And that's All-Star for now.